Hey everybody, this is Dark Guardsman. We're back with another video on the updates for ICBM Classic. So there's been a few changes since the last thing. The last video, of course, we covered the fact that the multi-blocks actually do work. So there's been quite a few adjustments on those to make them not crash. There's been a few usability adjustments on how the connections work and everything. Some of the more important things, the laser detonator actually does connect now. So if you right click, it'll actually set the frequency and you can actually trigger it. Of course, we would need a missile in here, so let's go ahead and put a missile in here to show this actually working. There's also been several other adjustments to how the configs work. So now there's power management settings for a little bit of everything. So as I don't know if I showed this in an earlier video, but we'll go through all the configs here in a second. Make sure that's actually running. I don't know why it's that trap chest. But let's see, options. Actually, no, it's under mod options. So I showed in an earlier video, I believe, that we do have options now. So last time, I believe there was only actual range settings in here. We now have launch delay, so you can control how much of a delay is between each missile launch, and this is per tier. So it goes from 100 on tier 1 to 80 on tier 2 to 60. So it actually is now an advantage for using the tiers other than just having the correct tier for the missile you're firing, because of course each tier limits the size of missile you can shoot. So there's that. There's now a power capacity per each one. So by default, the tier 1 has just a little bit over the amount of power it needs to fire. This is, of course, if you ever change these configs, make sure you always do a little bit over, just in case there's a rounding error that prevents this from getting to the actual power amount. So it's 4,000 per launch for this, which is down from the original. It was 10,000 to launch, and of course then it stored 20,000 RF when it actually was working. So now it's 4,000 per launch, 5,000 for capacity for tier 1. Tier 2 is now 8,000 for launch, 16 capacity, so basically you have 2 launches worth of power in there. And the tier 3 is 12,000, and of course it is 36 capacity. Now what I may end up actually coming through and doing here later is actually changing the power to depend on the tier of the missile. That'll probably happen at some point, because that makes a little bit more sense that then you have a tier 1 requiring less power, because effectively what the power is doing is you're charging the missile itself, and instead of using fuel, you're using energy to actually power it. And then of course we talked about the delay, so delay is the amount of time. With the delay, there is still a 10 tick or half a second check between redstone signal. So if you're using redstone to fire it, there will be a half a second delay, and that's simply just to prevent there being spam of world checks. So instead of it going, do I have redstone or do I have redstone every single tick, it now will only check to see if it has a redstone every 10 ticks. I may change this to an on update block check eventually, so that way it will check every single tick, or actually rather it'll check when the block changes next to it and do that. So we've actually set the tier 3 to 1, and normally it's I believe it's 60 is what it's supposed to be, so basically 3 seconds is what it's set to. This is basically set to 4 seconds, and this is set to 5 seconds. I may actually tweak those, and if you're a mod pack maker, feel free to go through and have fun with all these. I will translate key all these so that way they're easier to understand, and if we're missing a few of the tooltips on them. No more stuff on blast though. There's of course you can change the power under here, so we've got it set to false. I don't actually need power, so we'll get to see the maximum fire rate of this thing. So this guy's going to always say he has power, and we can sit here and just kind of spam this. Have a little bit of fun. Now with setting the delay on these, do be kind of careful, because these missiles can easily collide with each other when they're coming out of the tube. With the laser detonator, it's not too big of an issue. With the remote detonator, it's not too big of an issue. But redstone, you may end up screwing yourself over. But yeah, these are working pretty well. So we can pretty much chain fire this indefinitely and get a really nice high rate of fire out of this. So if you're making a mod pack and you feel like you want to chain gun these, feel free to change the delay. Now with going forward, we're probably going to put a lot more improvements into the mod to actually add settings like this. So you'll probably see these settings on every machine. So every machine is probably going to get power settings, range settings, everything. So very likely even the radar is probably going to get some. So right now the radar doesn't really have any. So let's go pull that out. And the EMP tower doesn't have any either. But we will eventually end up putting, for the EMP tower, it's definitely going to have a range for the actual radius. And I'll even add some settings to control what these buttons do. So if you decide that you want the EMP tower to only work on missiles but not electronics, I'll put some settings in there for you guys. Radar tower, of course, we'll put some range on checks on this. And speaking of other things we're probably going to do, the frequency system is probably going to get reworked. Using a standard number is not the best way to handle this. because it allows you to too easily overlap with another player nearby, which can be intentional if you wanted to, but what we're going to do is actually add a separate system for that, especially since the signal disruptor doesn't actually work right now. Right now this is supposed to be set where you set it to a frequency, and then anything with a frequency nearby just stops working. I'm going to rework this to act completely different, so we'll come back with that later. Probably end up redoing the diffuser here later as well. That's been about it for most of the changes. Most of the changes have been back-end patches to kind of make sure the multi-blocks are not crashing. There has been some minor issues with loading on these, so if you guys are using the new mod and you're testing and you get some load problems, please tell me. I want to fix these multi-blocks and get them running. I think that's about it. We did some stability testing yesterday. This turned out to be really good. I actually ended up running some automated tests on this, so that is not going to cause a single problem. And that's about it, so I'll be back here with another video later.